Continuing with Queen Kunti's prayers, we're up to verse 24. There's the photograph or the painting. This is a painting of Krishna coming to meet Vyasadeva, who went to get Krishna's help because his wife was feeling pretty uncomfortable. Vyasadeva wanted Krishna to persuade his son, yet unborn son, to come out of the womb because Shukadeva, his son, didn't want to leave the womb because he was considering, oh, there's too much Maya out there. Maybe I'll be captured by Maya. So this is a safe place. I'll just stay in this safe place. 16 years. Poor mother. So Krishna came, made a promise to the child in the womb of Vyasadeva's wife. I don't know her name. And Sukadeva Goswami agreed. Very well, Krishna's promise. And he left the womb of his mother, and he immediately left home, clothed by the four directions, walking, Vyasadeva calling out, "My dear son." And he didn't look back. He just kept going. So that's the painting. And the verse is describing the protection that Krishna provided to Kunti and her family. So let's sing the verse. Vishan Mahagne Parushada Shanad.
Vishal Mahavi Purushada Darshana Asat Samaya Vasa Vichata Vidhi Kamaharthasvato Jamyatrashasma Hari Virakshita
Vishan Mahagne Parushada Darshanad Asat Sabhaya Krishna Radhe Radhe Neka Maharatos Tato. The first line, Maha and Agni, the great forest fire. And the poisoned cake. We did discuss this, didn't we? Yes. From a great fire, that's the burning of the house. From cannibals, that's the Rakshasa that attacked the Pandavas and Bhima finished him, Kadochkacha. And from the vicious assembly, they tried to strip Draupadi, Dushasana specifically. From sufferings during our exile in the forest, Krishna protected them. From the battle where great generals fought, Mahabharata. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashvatthama. In the last line is Droni, because he's the son of Dronacharya, thus Droni. Astratas, that's the Astra of Dronacharya, son. And it was a Brahmastra weapon. Ashtra means weapon. Dronashtras cha. So now because that's towards the end, when it looked like everything was finished, Ashvatthama circled around, released a astra to kill the remaining survivor of the Pandava dynasty, that was the grandchild of Arjuna that was in the womb of Uttara, and Krishna protected Maharaj Parikshit. So here's some nice paintings. Here's Vishat, which is the first word in that line, verse, the poisoned cake. You heard about the poisoned cake. And after feeding poisoned cake to Bhima, he ate a lot of cake, because one of his names is Vrikodara, which means he's a voracious eater, and he ate lots of cake. He ate lots of everything, but he really liked the cake. And the poison put him to sleep. And Duryodhana personally tied him up in rope and rolled him into the river. And as we heard, he rolled into the river and down and down and down and down and down to the realm of the Nagas. And here he is dealing with the Nagas. We heard the Nagas bit him, and the poison of the Nagas was the antidote for the poison cake. And so the poison cake poison wore off, and he then broke loose from the ropes and had big battle with the Nagas. So the Naga king came and, calm down, Bhima. And the Naga king told Bhima what happened, because it was just eating cake. So, Vishat, Kunti is attributing Krishna, we could say, as super soul to protect Bhima from the poison cake. Maha, Agnihi, there you see in the background, that's that palace, the summer home, that was made of highly flammable material. It's called the House of Lac, or Shellac. And Vidura very kindly arranged for a tunnel to be built, so that on the evening that they were to be burned, they entered into the tunnel in the house, went down through the tunnel, came out the other end. As you see, there's Vidura ready to take them across the river in a boat to the other side. And when he got to the other side, it was late at night. Bhima was so powerful and strong, he lifted up his brothers and his mother and carried them on his shoulders. And Hidimba saw them coming, and Hidimba wanted to have a meal, so he attacked Bhima. Bhima finished him. So Purusha, Adha, the cannibals, the Asat, Sabhaya, or Sabha means assembly, and Sabhaya is a particular text of grammar. So unto the Sabha, the Asat, the vicious assembly, there's Dushasana trying to disrobe Draupadi, but she lifted both arms, called for Krishna. Krishna came in the form of unlimited sari, and she wasn't made naked. On the upper left, that's the blind king Dhritarashtra, with grandfather Bhishma by his side and Dronacharya by his other side, and Duryodhana with a red shirt pointing at Draupadi, telling Dushasana, strip her clothes. But beneath that raised platform where they're sitting is all the weapons and paraphernalia of the Pandavas. And over the right, there's the 5 brothers who have lost everything in the gambling match. Nice painting. Another painting of the same. Krishna protecting Draupadi. Then another protection was this one. Vana means forest. Vana vasa means the residents of the forest. Krishna, the sufferings during their exile in the forest. So there's the brothers, and the sage over to the left side. Vyasadeva met them when they were in the forest, and there's Kunti. Draupadi, not Kunti. Kunti stayed back. And Maha Ratha Astraha, the battle where great generals fought. There's some more details. There's a painting, or a drawing, of Bhishma Dev, where Krishna protected Arjuna, her son, from Bhishma's weapons, because we heard Bhishma made a vow that he would kill Arjuna or Krishna would have to break his vow. So they fought fiercely, and Arjuna was getting the worst end of it. And when it came towards the end of the day, Krishna picked up his chariot wheel of Arjuna, ready to smash Bhishma. So Krishna protected Arjuna. There's several. This is the BBT painting. Here's another nice painting. Grandfather Bhishma is rendering his weapons unto Krishna. And behind Krishna is Arjuna trying to stop Krishna from smashing. So it ended in a happy note. The conch shell blew at the end of the day, which meant fighting is over. And so Krishna dropped the chariot wheel and Bhishma didn't get smashed. There's some more history. Bhishma Dev was the stepbrother of the sons of Pandu. And so, in order to make arrangements for wife for one of the brothers, Vichitravirya was the stepbrother. He went all the way to Kashi and kidnapped, in a traditional Kshatriya manner, the 3 sisters to bring them back for Vichitravirya to marry. However, when he got all the way back to there, the painting is showing he fought off Shalva and the whole army, because the kidnapping was right in front of their Swayamvar ceremony, and he just such a powerful warrior. No one could stop him. So he brought the 3 daughters of the king of Kashi. There we see them in the back of the chariot. And when they got all the way to Hastinapur, one of the sisters, Amba, said, Bhima, I've already given my heart to another. How can I marry Vichitravirya? And he said, very well, you can go back to your father and marry Shalva. She said, that's not possible, because you've already kidnapped me, and my husband, and he would never accept me as his wife. In fact, he went back, and that's what he said. Bhishma has touched you, and so I can't marry you. You ask Bhishma to marry you. So she asked Bhishma to marry her. I mean, she could have said, okay, I'll marry Vichitravirya. This is what Shalva said. You should marry me. Please marry me. He said, sorry. I've taken a vow, I'll not marry. So you can go back to your father or whatever you like. And so she was pretty frustrated. And she decided, many things happened. She decided to undergo severe austerities. In her severe austerities, she pleased Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva said, in your next life, you'll become a man and you can be engaged in battle. It's a long story. And you can kill Bhishma, because otherwise Bhishma was invincible. It's a long story. Sikandini, there was a sex change. That is, Sikandi was born a woman. Something happened, and she changed into a man. And then she got a benediction: for some period of time you'll be a man, for some period of time you'll be a woman. And so Bhishma wouldn't fight someone who was born a woman. So when Sikandi, as a man, came forward in battle, Sikandi was able to defeat Bhishma. You see, that's day 10. And these other things happened prior to that. Some more protection. Jayadrath, who was the king of the Sindhu province, which was known as Dushala, he had some affection. One time he wanted to marry Draupadi because he saw her and said, woo, 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 I want to marry Draupadi. So he went to accost Draupadi, and Draupadi punched him, knocked him to the ground. Draupadi was no wimp, very powerful lady, and because Jayadrath was a powerful warrior, so he became vengeful. Here's a big chart. I'm not going to go into the big chart. There she is punching him. So he came back and tied her up and tried to kidnap her. And she called out for Bhima to help. Bhima took care of Jayadrath. Maharaj Yudhisthira saved Jayadrath while Bhima was ready to smash him. And so what did he do instead? Bhima humiliated him. He took his sword, cut off most of his hair, left with 5 tufts of hair, and declared, you're Yudhisthira's slave. But then the Pandavas released him, so Jayadrath, this is Mahabharata, looking funny like this, went into the mountains, engaged in tapasya to get revenge against Bhima. Lord Shiva came, gave him 2 boons, because he asked for 2 boons. He could defeat the Pandavas except Arjuna. Jayadrath got a boon from Lord Shiva. And that anyone who made Jayadrath's head fall on the ground would have his own head broken into 7 pieces. So what happened was, that's what happened to Jayadrath's father. It's a long story. When the Pandavas were in exile, they spent some time at the palace of the Virat. Those of you that know Mahabharata, you'll like these paintings. And those of you who don't know Mahabharata, it's a little complicated. And so the final year of their exile in the forest was to be incognito. So what they did, the Pandavas, they dressed themselves up as if they were, certain types of personalities. And Arjuna, as a personality, was a dance teacher. And the king, Virat, assigned Arjuna to teach his daughter dance. Towards the very end of that 1 year, many things happened, and I'll be there and I'll finish him. So the general came to meet Draupadi, but she didn't find Draupadi. He found Bhima. And Bhima pulverized him into pulp. His bones were broken. He became like a bag and tossed the bag to the side. And news spread, God, who, this powerful, powerful, powerful general. There's only one person that could have done that, Bhima. So they knew because the rule was in the final year of their incognito, if they were discovered, they'd have to do another 12 years in the forest. So Duryodhana and his buddies came to the kingdom of Virat, and what they did was they started harassing the cows and the cowherdmen on the perimeters of the kingdom. And the cowherdmen called for help. So Arjuna went to help. He's, dressed like a dance teacher, but he had his arrows, and the arrows and quiver and bow were up in a sal tree, and he had a chariot driver take him, got his quiver and bows, and defeated the entire army single-handedly. However, at that particular time, the 1 year of incognito was over. So now the Pandavas could come out of hiding. And when Arjuna went back and heard from, I think it was the son of the king, because the son of the king wanted Arjuna to be his chariot driver, and he couldn't manage. Arjuna said, you drive and I'll be the chariot guy. So when he came back, King Virat said, whoa, all 5 of you, the Pandavas in my home. Arjuna, thank you so much. Please accept my daughter, who was your student, in marriage. And Arjuna said, sorry, a man can't marry a student. But I have a son, and that son, Abhimanyu, he's of marriageable age. He could marry your daughter. So they were married. Abhimanyu, this is before the Battle of Kurukshetra, Abhimanyu and King Virat's daughter Uttara were married. Here's a nice painting of Arjuna as the dance teacher. And there's Uttara dancing and another lady playing mridanga. So during day 13, which was the day before the final day of it's 18 days, Abhimanyu had a big battle with the Kauravas. The Kauravas circled, and 7 generals circled him. This is against the codes of Kshatriya warfare. Circled Abhimanyu, and Abhimanyu was defeated. He was alone inside this, called the Vyuha, the circle of 7 great warriors. But he was being defeated, but he couldn't be stopped anyways. He was picking up the chariot wheel and smashing and smashing. And the Pandavas heard that Abhimanyu is being attacked illegally by 7 generals. So Jayadrath, there you see with the circle around him, Jayadrath held back the Pandavas because he had this benediction. He could defeat anyone except Arjuna. So he held back the Pandavas. Arjuna became furious because his son, Abhimanyu, has now been killed. So he took a vow. And the vow was known by the other side. He took a vow by the end of, before sunset the next day, he would kill Jayadrath, or he'd enter fire and give up his life by entering fire. Very intense. The Kauravas were fantastically happy. Wow, all we have to do is hold back Arjuna. And Arjuna's dead. because Jayadratha can kill all the other Pandavas. He got this benediction from Lord Shiva, but Arjuna will kill himself. All we have to do is contain Arjuna for one day. So Krishna asked Arjuna, why'd you do this? He said, I know you'd protect me. The plot thickens. So the next day, Arjuna killed Jayadratha. There's a big, big battle. That's the conch blowing, is indicating that the battle is about to begin. Phalanxes of soldiers. Arjuna attacked the Kaurava army with hundreds of arrows. Battle. This is obviously, there's a little book to illustrate all this. And, the Kauravas want to protect, they want to attack Arjuna, but Arjuna's attacking them. Arjuna fought, and this day, Dronacharya, but he was unable to defeat Dronacharya. So he moved on. He sped past Dronacharya. There he goes. There's our Krishna in his chariot driver of Arjuna. And in the back is Drona's, hey, where are you guys going? And Arjuna next challenged Duryodhana. And you see in the drawing, some arrows were fired and another arrow intercepted that arrow and so forth and so on. Arjuna is such an expert archer, Dronacharya's hands and fingers were pierced, so he couldn't fight. Next, as Arjuna approached Jayadratha, the entire Kaurava army surrounded him because that was what they were supposed to do. Because by protecting Jayadratha, Arjuna would kill himself. So Bhima came in the middle and tried to clear the way for Arjuna to finish, because the benediction was known. He can kill and cannot be killed by anyone except Arjuna. So here goes the setting of the sun, and when the setting of the sun comes, that means the battle is over, and Arjuna will take his life if he hasn't killed Jayadratha. So what happened? Krishna raised his right hand so that a Sudarshan chakra appeared at the end of the day hadn't reached. Krishna protected. All of this is Krishna's protecting Arjuna because he made this intense vow. Throwing that disc, he covered the sun like an eclipse, and at once darkness enveloped the field. Throwing that disc, he covered the sun like an eclipse, and darkness, thinking that the sun had set, the Kauravas cheered. Jayadratha was still alive. Now Arjuna would enter fire. Surely the war was over. Suddenly, Krishna withdrew his chakra, and it was light again. The sun, clearly visible, just above the western horizon. Arjuna instantly released his arrow. Check it out. It flew straight at Jayadratha, caught him unaware of the sudden reappearance of the sun, and what happened was the arrow pierced his head, and the head went flying through the air, landed on the lap of his father. Here's another painting. The father of Jayadratha was surprised to see his son's head in his lap, and he threw it on the ground. So what happened? His head broke into 7 pieces. High stakes. And then the Bhagavad Gita, verse 1876, wherever there is Krishna and Arjuna, there's sure to be victory. But the battle's not over yet. Dronacharya had his hand pierced by arrows, so he couldn't fight. So Bhishma has been killed by Sikandi. So now Drona has become the commander-in-chief. This is day 15 out of the 18-day battle. There goes Drona fighting. And so what was the plan? To say there was an elephant of the same name as his son. So he, Krishna, requested Yudhisthira, who never tells a lie, to say that Ashwatthama is dead. But there was an elephant by the same name, Ashwatthama is dead. So he went and told, Yudhisthira went and told Drona, Ashwatthama is dead. And so he gave up his life. Next day, Drishtadyumna, then, who is the commander-in-chief of the Pandava army, took charge of beheading the unarmed Dronacharya. That's Drishtadyumna beheading the unarmed Dronacharya. Skullduggery, huh? Tough business. Day 17. There's only 18 days in the battle. This is Arjuna firing an arrow at who? Who's he firing an arrow at? The sixth brother of the Pandavas. Who's the sixth brother of the Pandavas? Because there's 5 of them. Who's number 6? Karna. Who's Karna? Karna was the son, the first child of Kunti. I hope you like Mahabharata stories. Kunti, when she was a young girl, was not intimidated when everyone else was intimidated by a visit to the royal palace by the mystic yogi named Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni is a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is known as Ashutosh, which can mean easily pleased or easily angered. So everyone knew, don't mess. So he came and everyone scattered. But Kunti served him so nicely, so nicely, so nicely that he gave her a benediction. Young girl, benediction. Here's a mantra, and you use this mantra. You can call any demigod you wish, and the demigod will come and produce a child. You'll be the mother of the children of the father demigod. So she's a young girl. She was curious. She called the sun god. And he came. There's a beautiful painting. I don't think I have that painting. And she said, oh. And he said, don't worry, your virginity will not be lost. Yes, but I'll walk around pregnant. No, the child will be born immediately. You've asked for this, the mantra, it can't fail. So he produced a child named Karna. And when the child was born, he was born with armor on his body. Built on his body. I mean, like, built on his body. And later, on the evening of the famous Mahabharata battle, Lord Indra, the king of heaven, disguised as an old Brahmin, went to Karna and asked for his celestial armor in charity. Indra was apprehensive that Karna, by virtue of his phenomenal skills as a warrior, may be able to overwhelm Arjuna. So virtuous Karna cut off his armor right from his body. Karna had been cautioned by the sun god that Indra was going to make such a request. But Karna was so large-hearted that he could not refuse anyone. knowing fully well that Indra was playing a trick on him, disguised as a Brahmin, he parted with his celestial armor, which were parts of his body since birth, and which made him invincible. So, knowing that, Indra was taken aback at Karna's capacity to give away anything asked for. Mahabharata, full of intrigue. Indra said, Karna, what you have done today, no ordinary mortal could have done. I'm immensely pleased with your generosity. You can ask for any benediction. If you're really pleased with me, then you kindly give me your Shakti weapon, which has the potential to destroy any enemy. Sure enough, Indra gave the Shakti weapon to Karna on the condition that he could use it only once, and that thereafter the weapon shall be returned to Indra. Intrigue. Karna's chariot wheel was stuck. Krishna ordered Arjuna to fire an arrow to kill Karna while he is unarmed, trying to get his chariot wheel unstuck. And Karna called out, "This is unjust." And Krishna said, when it suits you, you adamantly oppose an unjust act against yourself or against your friends, but you do not speak up against the injustice of others. Where was your sense of justice when the Pandavas were cheated out of their kingdom, or when Draupadi was dragged into the assembly by her hair, or when 6 warriors surrounded Abhimanyu to cut him down? No, my friend, you will be treated the way you have allowed others to be treated. So there you see he's trying to unstuck his chariot wheel, and you see some arrows stuck in his back. Karna, slain by Arjuna's Anjalika weapon. And when he was killed, Karna was killed, Duryodhana was inconsolable. No one could pacify him. Now comes the last day. That was day 17. Hear the drum roll, hear the bugles blaring. Day 18 of the 18-day battle. Big battle between Bhima and Duryodhana fighting with clubs. And both Bhima and Duryodhana were trained in fighting with clubs by whom? Balaram. Right? Balaram. So there they are fighting. There you see the Pandavas. Look at that. There's Balaram with his his plow, watching. He asked them to not fight, and they had to fight. And Krishna gave the indication to Bhima where to strike him, because he was protected in his whole body except for his thighs. There was no other trick. So he broke his thighs. This is the day 18. All of this is Droni Astra, the weapon of Ashwatthama, the son of Droma. So this is in Kunti's prayers, that you protected, at last, and most recently, you protected the grandson of the Pandavas, or the grandson of Arjuna, from the weapon of Ashwatthama, the Brahmastra weapon. That thing in the lower right, that's what our artists use to depict the Brahmastra. And there's this little saying, we're almost done for this morning. Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke. Rakhe means to kill, and Mare means to protect. If Krishna protects someone, no one can kill him. But if Krishna wants to kill someone, no one can give him protection. So the summary in Kunti's prayers, many great misfortunes befell the Pandavas. But in all circumstances, they simply depended on Krishna, who always saved them. A few more Mahabharata points. When both Balaram and Krishna were cousins. In fact, the Pandavas and the Kauravas were cousins. But because the quarrel was between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, Krishna and Balaram both said, we're not going to fight. Balaram decided to just go on pilgrimage. And Krishna said, instead, he brought together Duryodhana and Arjuna and said, I'm not going to fight, but this much I can do. I can be with one of you, and the other one can have my armies. And the armies from Dwarka were massive. So Duryodhana was given the first choice. Armies, please. You're not going to fight, but the armies will fight. So I'll take the armies, thank you. And Arjuna said, now it specifically, sitting by Krishna's head was Duryodhana, sitting by Krishna's feet was Arjuna. He said, I'll take you. But I'm not going to fight, that's okay, just be with me. So Krishna said, okay, I'll be your chariot driver. Fantastic. So now the Lord and Master is going to be the chariot driver, the servant, the submissive order carrier of his own devotee. So that's it for this class. The exemplary life of Queen Kunti is on display. From the very first verse, this line that let my mind, no, second verse, let my mind flow like the Ganges flows downstream, not checked by any obstacle. It took a while to gather all those paintings, but the storyline is nice to follow. When I was asked to speak on this topic, I just do a whole summary in 3 classes. I said I can't do that. Doesn't do justice to the topic. So just like this is an 18-day battle, and you got a quick overview. But just to skip that, because it's part of what she said. You protected us from the Astra of Ashwatthama. So Krishna's protection is always there for his devotee, because they have him as their exclusive shelter, and he reciprocates when that's their mood. The same applies to us. So there we go. See if there's some discussion. Now, compliment, you've been very forthcoming with questions and discussion. It's nice. The topics are meaningful and relevant, and it's enlivening.
Thank you, Maharaj. From these examples, are we to understand that Krishna will protect our bodies and minds, or are we to take these examples and use it as kind of Krishna will only protect our soul from degrading?
Nice question. Well, if you're Arjuna, he'll protect everything. The protection doesn't mean, for the rest of us, that our body's never going to perish, or never get, stub our toe, or have, any malady, or that's not the promise. The protection is not that. So ultimately, the destiny of the soul. Okay. Yeah.
Krishna, Haribo.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was wondering about these stories are very nice.
Mahabharata.
I wonder about, I mean, clearly they have deep spiritual significance and they really bring to life all the things we're learning. But when we were discussing how Krishna consciousness helps get rid of the conflict of interest,
Yeah.
the cultural aspects of Krishna sometimes seem, it creates this partisan part of Krishna. And I have met many young people who, and I used to, but not anymore, but I meet people who they like the universal form. They like the effulgence because it seems nonpartisan, and this seems partisan. So, what can we learn from this? How can we understand this as representing something that isn't partisan?
Well, for several things. First thing, invite such people to read chapter 11. In the universal form that Krishna shows to Arjuna, living entities are being devoured in the mouths of the universal form. Living entities are stuck in between his teeth. They're being devoured by the universal form. Because that's part of the function of the universe. It's creation and dissolution and maintenance. So, do a little reality check on what the universal form is. And second point is, similar to the preamble of your question, that is, why do people come to this world? It's in the universe and there's the universal form, but why? What's the impetus or the universal presence of something that everyone carries, and that's a separate interest than the Supreme Lord's interest. So when those separate interests are there, there's clash always, not sometimes. I mean, it becomes more, it becomes less, but there's clash because of the interest is other than Krishna's interest. So now what does Krishna do? He pratranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. And when he Vinash, when he destroys the Duskritis, they get liberation. Say that again. When he destroys the Duskritis, they get liberation. So it's an act of kindness or an act of kindness. And the act of kindness looks different because we look through a different lens. That's not kindness. You just destroyed. That's not kindness. Violence. So is violence needed in a world? Are Kshatriyas needed to protect? Because that question came up in earlier discussions. Sometimes I see the necessity to give protection to innocent people. And a virtuous person will feel that feeling. Innocent people should be protected. They shouldn't be subjected because I want to be, milquetoast, nice and neutral and peaceful. So innocent people being exploited is not okay. I can't just be neutral. So then, if the perpetrator of something upon an innocent individual is a violent person, then violence or force is needed to check that person. That's why there's Kshatriyas in Vedic system. So Kshatriyas don't misuse, good Kshatriyas don't misuse that power. They use it simply for one thing, protection. So it's just part of that's part of the universal form. There's the arms of the universal form that give protection. And then there's the belly and the legs and the head. That's part of the universal form. So it's there in the universal form, and it's there in the activities of Krishna as well, and Krishna's devotees. If they're proper devotees, they don't misuse that capacity of strength. They use it only. That's a whole idea of bhakti. They use it only, just like procreation is used only for producing God-conscious children and not otherwise. Although it's a built-in propensity. Protecting is a built-in propensity. But it has its utilization, and otherwise it's, it's under control. Now, having a discussion with somebody depends upon their open-mindedness and their willingness to understand, as opposed to the willingness to tenaciously hold on to their point of view and just argue forever about their point of view. I remember hearing Prabhupada say, Gandhi was asked about protection of cows. And any sensible person understands cows, they have no means of defense. They have no claws, they have no teeth, they have no horns. By God's design, they're defenseless. They're to be protected. So he was asked in a public assembly, should you not speak something about protecting cows? It's such an essential part of Krishi Go Rakshavana Bhagavad Gita that you love so much, and Vedic culture and so forth, and a civilized person. And he said, Prabhupada said that, what can I do? For Muslims, this is their religion. So the pacifist can't speak about innocent entities being brutalized. So there's something not okay. So the point is, the place of protection has its place. And even in the universal form, that means of protection, the exhibition of protection is there. And the exhibition of violence is also there because it's part of the universe. So when it comes to Krishna's form, the main image of Krishna is in Vrindavan playing upon his flute. But even when he's playing upon his flute in Vrindavan, there are demons that come and he finishes them. Even in Vrindavan. And does it in such a way that's, it's not terribly disruptive, but he does the needful. And again, that person, those demons killed by Krishna in Vrindavan or anywhere, on the whole Kurukshetra battle, all these living entities became liberated. Oh. And some persons, depends on the person. They may say, oh, let me think about it. Oh, they may just argue their point of view. That's not the God I know, or something. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I have 2 questions. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. The first question is, so there's no denying that Queen Kunti she has a taste for devotional service, and her sons, the Pandavas, as well. And I'm wondering, in the story of the Mahabharata, you're hearing about these activities, and the situations that they're put into. And every now and then it becomes, because of some dialogue that makes it obvious that they're devotees of Krishna through their prayers or glorifying Krishna or, calling out to Krishna. But in between, they're just responding to situations, acting as anyone else in that position. Yudhisthira is very inclined towards Dharma. Arjuna's a warrior. Bhima's very aggressive,
Chivalrous.
Yes. And so I'm wondering, what is the difference between other people in those roles that may not necessarily be devotees of Krishna and them? The point that you made yesterday, that when a prayer is recited with feeling, it turns from ritual to spiritual, so it Christianizes it. So what is this going on with them when they're just carrying out their activities? How is it that all of their activities are offered to Krishna? What does that look like internally for them?
Well, there's the anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam principle operating. That is, they don't do things that are not pleasing. They do things that are pleasing. So when they're doing things or not doing things, that's what's going on inside. And all it takes is some very clear indication this is pleasing. Now, in Yudhisthira's case, the exception, he hesitated because holding the value of truthfulness above what Krishna wanted. But then the gear changed, and so he did what Krishna wanted. It's said, this is Bhakti Siddhanta. Your question is, what's going on inside? It's just the green light, the red light. Propensity is there, but they don't use their propensity unless the indication is from Krishna. Use the propensity. So when they do use the propensity, even without Krishna by their side, saying to Yudhisthira, say Ashvatthama is dead, that it's utilizing this propensity of truthfulness, for example, only in one, with one purpose behind it. So what Bhakti Siddhanta writes is, it is said by some, and he refutes it, that Yudhisthira's chariot was rising above the ground, but when he told the lie, then his chariot touched the ground because he told a lie. Bhakti Siddhanta said that's not correct. He hesitated to do what Krishna wanted, therefore his chariot touched the ground. Because before it was moving above the ground. So that example is there to teach the lesson, even the truthfulness, which is a mode of goodness principle for what to speak for a Kshatriya, to have that principle. You give your word, you keep your word, and you don't speak something other than truth. So there's the answer to your question. That's the guiding principle, that same message as we heard yesterday about from the heart. The heart of bhakti is the intention that Krishna is to be pleased. So that's what was going on in their heart. We couldn't. You may not see that. You can see the behavior or speech, but what's going on in their heart is Krishna is to be pleased, and that's everything for them. The pure devotee. And then persons that aren't pure devotees, back to your question, they may have propensities, but the consideration of the exhibition of those propensities is not the bhakti principle. It's a covering. The bhakti principle is covered. Instead, something else. It's pleasing to me or pleasing to those dear to me, and that's pleasing to me. It's about me. Second question?
The second question, you mentioned that Maharaj Yudhisthira's chariot, it was floating.
Touching the ground.
It was floating, and then it was touching the ground after he kind of left that.
He hesitated.
Yes. And something similar when Arjuna, he was very enthusiastic about the battle, and he asked Krishna to bring him out and show him the two sides of the army. He was looking forward to fighting. And then when he started actually questioning whether he even wanted to do it, which was within Krishna's desire that the battle happen, then it seemed as if his material desires started to increase. His desire for his...
It's a lila. I mean, the best way to process his hesitation is Krishna was inducing him to have that hesitation so that the topic, the whole Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. Because it's outside of his nature to hesitate what Krishna wanted. And even if Krishna didn't say it, he knew, because he knows Krishna so well. He knew Krishna's heart. He didn't even have to say it, but he's in that space because Krishna induced him to be in that space so that he could speak Bhagavad Gita. You're hesitating.
That wasn't the question that I was.
Oh, it wasn't your question. I'm sorry.
No, I thank you. So just to use as an example, the chariot touching the ground, Arjuna playing the role of someone who's becoming bewildered by coming outside of that, operating within Krishna's desire. Can this be taken as an example as the taste being an indicator for one's pleasing or displeasing Krishna? That Krishna reciprocates with you by giving you a taste for bhakti. And that if one's taste for bhakti is increasing for different devotional activities, seva, things like that, that by one's taste increasing, that this is a good indicator that, okay, I must be pleasing Krishna. And that if that taste is taken away, that suddenly I don't have a taste for these particular activities, that I'm maybe displeasing Krishna.
A humble Vaishnav will think that way, but it's not always for that reason. The humble Vaishnav is thinking, it's the problem is over here, not over there. So, however, Krishna may take the taste away, using that phrase, when there's some, in the case of some devotees, it's some residual material tendencies, so Krishna wants to take the residual material tendencies away. And so he makes some hardship or difficulty, or the taste seems to fade. But the purpose of that taste seeming to fade is Krishna wanting to strengthen the shelter-taking tendency. So that's the exception. It's the exception is, as Prabhupada explains, one of the names of Hari is he takes away. So he can take away the taste. He can take away anything he wants because he's Hari. And the purpose of Hari taking things away is to strengthen the shelter-taking. The exclusive shelter-taking, specifically your exclusive shelter-taking. Now, supposing somebody's at the exclusive shelter-taking, then they shouldn't lose taste. But Krishna may take the taste or anything away to enhance and strengthen the exclusive shelter-taking. That's the exception. And it's not Krishna's capricious. He's just fiddling around in ways that he shouldn't fiddle around, because you don't treat your unalloyed devotee this way. Come on. What's wrong with you? Kind of thing. But Krishna may do that. You know, it's unusual. It's not. It's the exception, but he may do that. But back to your question, yeah, that there's a taste, even when there's difficulty, etc., etc., etc. The taste doesn't fade. It's just the circumstances are what the circumstances are. So there may be other emotions at play, but the taste for shelter taking doesn't fade. I'll just make reference again. I hope you received, and I hope you had a chance to look at that St. Francis little passage. And what he's saying is the highest joy, the greatest joy, is specific to the mood of forgiveness for aggressors or harsh wrongdoers directed to you, and that the mood of forgiveness is a joy. Now, that's not losing the taste, that's enhancing the taste to the greatest joy. But so that's where, for St. Francis at least, in this particular exchange with Leo, that the taste, you're using taste, we can say the greatest joy is that connection, and regardless of what the external circumstances are, abiding by that which is pleasing to Krishna is the taste or the joy. The circumstance isn't. It's the connection that is the taste. And so back to your question. If the taste starts to subside, is this an indicator that our attention got diverted somehow? For sure. Generally speaking. Because we're at the center instead of Krishna being at the center. So when Krishna is at the center, that's the greatest contentment or happiness or joy or taste of the living entity is the Krishna connection. Krishna's pleasure is everything. And when we start thinking otherwise, the modes come in and cover. Are we done? Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.